Hello class, we're towards the end of this unit. We're going to look at parallel and perpendicular lines today. So let's first look at parallel lines. When we have two lines that are parallel, these two lines are going to have the same slope. So parallel lines have the same slope, but they have different y-intercepts. Okay, there we go. Y-intercepts. So we can say that line L, and we'll just label it line L sub 1. And then the symbol for parallel is two lines like this, L2. And the slope of line 1 would be the same as the slope of line 2. But when we put it in y equals mx plus b format, the slope-intercept format, the y-intercepts cannot equal each other. If they did, they would be the same line. We don't want the same line. Oops, line. There we go. And we have learned that parallel lines can share no points, so that's why we would not want them to have the same y-intercept, because then they would share all the same points, and that would be not the definition of parallel lines. Let's take a look at perpendicular lines. Perpendicular lines have slopes that are related to each other, but they're not the same. So they do have slopes, and the relation is that they are opposite and by opposite we mean the opposite sign, so that's a plus or minus. If it's positive, the perpendicular would be negative. If it's negative, the perpendicular would be positive. But and reciprocal. So that when the slope is written in the form of a fraction, it would be the same thing as, remember, keep, change, flip, it's the flip part, that's the reciprocal. So we would flip that fraction. So perpendicular lines have slopes that are opposite and reciprocal of each other. So let's take a look at a couple examples. We're going to use some of the same information, but then we're going to write a line parallel and a line perpendicular. So we're going to find the equation of the line, and we're going to put it in slope-intercept form, which slope-intercept form, right, is y equals mx plus b. And it's going to contain the point -1, 4. So that's going to be our x1, y1. And we want parallel, so that's going to be the same slope, and perpendicular, which is going to be the opposite reciprocal slope, to this line, 5x minus 3y plus 6 equals 0. So let's find the slope of this line. And I need to think of a thicker line here. That's not the one I want. Never mind. Okay, so if I take 5x minus 3y plus 6, first thing I'm going to do is subtract 6. I'm going to get it into that slope-intercept form. So I'm going to have 5x minus 3y equals -6. And I'm going to subtract 5x from each side. And so I'm going to have -3y equals -5x minus 6. Then I'm going to divide by -3. So y is equal to 5/3 x, and then -3 divided by -6 divided by -3 is a +2. So the slope of the line that's given is 5/3. So when I go over to find a parallel line, that slope is going to be 5/3. It's going to be the same. Oops. 3. There we go. And we're going to use that point, -1, 4. And so we're going to use the point slope form. Y minus y1 equals m times x minus x1. And we're just going to put that information in. So we have y minus, and y1 was 4, equals 5/3 that slope times x minus a -1, which is the same thing as x plus 1. And I'm going to solve for y. So first thing I'm going to do is distribute this 5/3. So I get y minus 4 equals 5/3 x plus 5/3. And I'm going to add 4 to each side. I'm going to have y is equal to 5/3 x, 4, 5, 15, okay, 12, 13, 14, 15. All right, 4 is 12/3, and I'm going to add 5 more thirds to that, so it's 17/3. So there's the problem, or the answer to the equation that's going to be parallel. Let's take a look and see if we can find perpendicular. So perpendicular, our slope now, since the slope of the line that we're comparing it to is positive, the slope is going to be negative. And we want to take that fraction of the slope and flip it over. So instead of having 5/3, we're going to have 3/5. And we're still going to use that same point, -1, 4. So using that point slope form, y minus 4 is equal to -3/5 times x minus a -1, which is like adding a +1. And once again, we're going to solve for y. We'll first distribute that -3/5, and we get y minus 4 equals -3/5 x minus 3/5. And then we're going to add 4 to each side. And we get y equals -3/5 x. And 4 is the same thing as 20/5. And if we take 20/5 and subtract 3/5, we're going to have 17/5. And there's our answer, our equation for the perpendicular line.